me, who had just come back from 2 tours in Iraq. He walked up to me, shook my hand, and said, "Thank you for your service." And I have to tell you, I broke out and I cried. Because here's a man, I had a boy in Baghdad, I had a son who served over in Afghanistan, and here's a man who's just been in the war zone, and he's coming back and thanking us. And we asked him why. He said, because you guys are home here taking care of our country while we're off securing the borders of another nation. A gentleman that was here with the National Guard securing our borders is with us today. Sergeant Dan Porcupile is with us. Dan, welcome.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody. Man, woman, and child, dog, everybody that's out here supporting this great event today. And even though this is the second annual event, it's a great start to hopefully it's going to be a very long and prosperous and growing tradition. First thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to our special guest, Nacho and former Officer Compion. Thank you for being out here today, supporting our cause, and helping us support you and supporting the general overall message that we need to get back to the basics. We need to think about each other. We need to think about what this country was founded on and what we need to do to continue to keep this country great, free, and secure and prosperous, which is the overall American dream, one of the reasons why we all celebrate this Independence Day to begin with.
Now, Dan, you were in the National Guard. You actually served on the border, and you were on Roger's show several times. Roger Hedgecock show on KOGO. And at that point, you couldn't tell us much because you were still in service, etc. You can now speak, apparently, more freely about your task on the border. Tell us more.
I had started the mission when it opened in 2006. I closed the mission in 2008 with our 2-year, 24-month involuntary obligation, if you will. I'm from San Diego. I lived in Mira Mesa since '91, and then with the advent of the border mission, I moved south. And for me to even be in San Diego County, it was a surreal experience on the opening days to see what was going on and to actually be on the wall. One of the very first things I noticed on my opening day as a shift leader in our local community was a high-speed chase where a van broke loose and subsequently injured some aliens, and the driver of the vehicle, the coyote if you will, ended up having a leg amputation. I had been on the border 5 days when that happened. I can say that by the close of the mission, 2 years later, things had improved significantly. We had done a lot of adjusting. They adjusted with our moves, they being the coyotes, the smugglers, and everything that comes across. It's not just about lettuce, it's not just about drugs, everybody's got a reason to come over here. And a lot of it's not good, some of it's justified, but that's not what really what it's about. It's a very, very dangerous place. When we first showed up, it was basically kind of an admin status. Just be there in uniform, in non-tactical military vehicles, and just kind of make a presence. Within about 60 days, we were wearing more body armor and carrying more ammo than most of the people in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's that dangerous. We were receiving assaults, not as National Guard, but just anybody who's on a border, be it Border Patrol, Minutemen, National Guard, volunteers. We receive assaults daily in this county. Very rarely are there significant injuries, but more often there's equipment damage, and there's a cost to the government, there's a cost to the taxpayers.
Sure. Now, Dan, you say that you were out here and they were loading you down with more equipment, loading you down with ammo. Were your weapons loaded?
The arming status was that we did carry magazines. The rules of engagement were that we were to defend ourselves. I won't get into particulars, it's kind of military jargon. But absolutely, I mean, there's one school of thought that says, you know, that if we were approached at the areas that we were operating in, we were supposed to completely back away and just let them walk the ground. There's a kind of a judgmental decision-making process when that occurred, and it did occur frequently. There were a few occasions where I'll just refer to it as traffic, which would be people coming from the south would approach our sites, and we wouldn't just, you know, tuck tail and hightail out. We would go ahead and call it up, stand the ground, and just by the fact that we were there, they would go ahead and surrender. We were hands off at that point. Just by the fact that we were there, they knew that they were done, and Border Patrol agents would respond and subsequently make a legal apprehension. We did not have powers of arrest. We did not attempt to make any arrests, nor were we involved in any situation, to my knowledge, throughout the entire mission where any soldier had to lock and load his weapon and defend himself. Thank God.
So, Dan, what we're talking about is we hear about militarization of the border. Mexico says, you can't do that, you can't put troops on the border. And we, quite frankly, in this country say, yeah, put more troops on the border. But when you guys get on the border, you have no more jurisdictions and or rights than Carl and his guys had.
That's correct. The fact of the matter is, even as National Guard, even as a military policeman, the definition of powers of arrest are very, very long and detailed and specific. I could commit no more, well, technically I can't even commit a citizen's arrest according to my order of operation and my operational procedures as being a National Guardsman on a border. All I could do was observe and report. So I technically wasn't even allowed to commit a citizen's arrest.
What was your SOP with regard to the standing operating procedure for the civilians among us? What was your SOP with regard to the Minutemen and the other civilians? If they came in contact with you, how were you told to behave?
The standard operating procedure laid out that anybody, friendly or otherwise, that approached the area I was operating in, I had to not contact with. I could not initiate contact, I could not receive contact, because in my world, anything's a potential threat. Which it makes sense. I mean, obviously there's common sense that plays into that, and you make a decision on the ground and you just don't say so much about it. An incredible amount of paperwork was involved in what we did also. As a ship leader, I probably did 3 hours worth of paperwork just to justify what we were doing out there every single day, and reported up all the way to the Pentagon and chain of command, Joint Chiefs, and everybody else. As far as contact goes, the Minutemen on the border, I won't mention any specific names except for one. Actually, I won't even do that. He operates frequently in our areas that we were operating in, and it's, even though we were out there and the Border Patrol were out there, it was not enough. You could put Minutemen, National Guard, citizens, everybody you can imagine, arm in arm across the border, and it wouldn't be enough. They would simply go around us, under us, or over us. They just couldn't go through us as fast, but they would try. But like I said, by the time we were done with the mission, things had slowed down significantly in the areas that we were operating in, but they would simply just shift fire and move around, take the water, or go further east or go further west over the water. We like the support. You guys help us do our job, just like we were helping the Border Patrol do their job. And it's like everybody that comes out helps us do the job that needs to be done.
And tell me this, is this quite frankly just a bunch of bull crap? Is it just a smokescreen? We're putting uniforms there, but the uniforms can't do anything, can't make an arrest, can't do an apprehension, they can't do anything more than, quite frankly, Carl and his folks can do. But there's not that smokescreen with these guys. These guys aren't militarizing the border.
Well, it's this funny thing. You start talking about, lawyers and language and what you can and can't do, and posse comitatus, and at the end of the day, I'm an American citizen. I wear a uniform. I do a job without remorse, without regret, and I'll do it again. I'll do it to my dying breath. If my presence on the border, in whatever posture, prevents an alien from coming into this country and doing ill to this country, and it saves an American life, I don't care what they call it, and I don't care how we have to do it, it just has to get done.
And that's probably a good way to look at this, because we talk about the National Guard on the border, and like me, we poo-poo it, but Dan's living proof that perhaps we shouldn't poo-poo it, because those uniforms do, in point of fact, detour, distract, so on and so forth. Yeah, they should be locked and loaded. Maybe that's the next step we get to with this whole drug cartel crap that keeps coming across our border. Maybe at some point we will start opening fire when they open fire on us. But Dan's living proof that we shouldn't poo-poo this National Guard thing. Yeah, it's a bit of a smokescreen, but again, it's an American military uniform there, and he's right. If one terrorist doesn't come across because Dan was on the border, then we are blessed.
Sure, and one thing that folks don't realize, or some folks don't realize, is that 3 out of 5 people that are coming across the border are known criminals. They've had arrests here in the Boulevard sector. I'm sure Jeremiah could back me up on this. where they had 26 people come across, and all 26 were known felons. And so, to your credit, sir, thank you very much for everything you did. All right, and we are moving now into the next break, and thank you for joining us on WS Radio.
Thank you very much. Happy 4th of July.